Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. I'm here with Master Gardener Bernie over at Hernando Extension. My name is Colby Pitts. I am the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program Coordinator for Hernando County. Um, if you have any questions, as always, please just drop them in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them. Uh, Bernie, do you have anything interesting you'd like to talk
Well,
about to get us started?
yeah, obviously today is one of those days where uh, the drought and then rain situation really starts to show up. I don't know about the people that are out farther away, but everybody in our area have pretty well been soaked this morning. So we've had a time of severe drought followed by what's going to be a time of a lot of water. And the thing that's bad about it is you can't just look at a plant and tell whether it's had not enough water or too much water. So both of them produce about the same symptoms. Both of them eventually are terminal to the plant. So
Mm-hmm.
once it starts raining, you're probably not going to want to run the irrigation system. It's going to lead to a lot of fungal problems. A lot of the plants, if you've had trouble with fungal problems in the past, it might not be a bad idea to preemptively strike this year and maybe use a little fungicide ahead of having problems. And uh, I think that we're going to see some really fast growth. Plants that have not been doing well because of the drought are now just going berserk. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, my lawn, which went for about 4 months and only grew less than an inch, is now growing at about 8 inches a week,
Mm-hmm.
which is, you know, that's enough to drive you nuts because you really need to mow twice a week. And just getting over the COVID thing, I really haven't had the endurance just now getting back to where I can do those things. So I spent 3 hours mowing yesterday, and I'm sure that everybody in this area anyway is doing a lot of mowing they hadn't had to do for a while. So, but but one thing you just want to be careful of. Don't let any water stand. Plants really hate having their feet soaked in water, unless you're one of the shoreline plants. You want oxygen to the roots, and you want uh, not not totally dry, but not totally wet either. So if you have low areas, you may need to do something about a little drainage to keep the plants going. So that's basically where I'm at. If you've got roses, probably wouldn't hurt to spray the roses occasionally, maybe weekly for a little while. Roses tend to suffer a lot from the fungal problems and other diseases. So, if you beat the fungus to it and you get rid of the problem ahead of time, you're ahead of the game. It's easier to prevent it than it is to cure it.
Mm-hmm.
What's been going on in the Florida friendly world? You got anything new coming up? Any in home inspections or anything that you're doing? Tell the world what has happened to get your plant or your property certified as Florida friendly.
So they made some changes to originally, and this is, I don't know if you remember this. This has been months ago. Right after I started here, I was really looking at doing the recognition program here because I don't know how much it had been implemented. I didn't have the data on that. Um, and then the big office in Gainesville decided that they're going to change a bunch of the stuff. So I kind of backed off of doing the actual certifications because they're still changing that program um, quite a bit. But when it comes to just applying those Florida friendly principles, you really just want to look at those 9 principles. Uh, and and honestly, I'm doing classes right now. If you're in Hernando County, I do classes on all the 9 principles. I've been doing them at the libraries, namely Spring Hill Branch and West Hernando Branch. I'm there once a month at both of them. I'm at different places in that. I did attracting wildlife, which is Principle 5. I did that over at um, the Spring Hill branch last week, and then the week before that, I was over at the West Hernando branch doing watering efficiently. And watering efficiently really isn't. I think when I advertise that one, I have to be a little. It's not finger wagging. I understand that everyone's tired of hearing about. They don't want to be preached at about how they can't water but once a week. But really, the goal of that class isn't to you know scold you for how you water. It is to teach you how to most efficiently use the water that you're already using. Um, things like not watering your sidewalk, um, not watering the side of your house, preventing runoff, um, those types of things. Because it's like super harmful if you're watering your sidewalk, because not only is that water not being used by any of your plants, it's also picking up all kinds of nasty pollutants and everything else when it's running off the driveway down into your storm drain. So uh, really, that's kind of the main thing I've been focusing on right now is getting out, especially with all this rain. Talking about runoff, we still do our rain barrel and compost bin workshops in conjunction with Dr. Bill and Leanna over at Solid Waste and Recycling. So those are every month. Our next one is July 19th, I believe, which is a Friday. It's a Friday morning, and some public feedback that I've gotten. Those Friday morning ones, they're pretty well attended. The morning ones are well attended, but not everyone can make it. I go to work the same as a lot of people, 5 days a week, 40 hours. So we're looking at doing maybe a weekend one, maybe one on Zoom coming up soon. If you're interested in any of those, any of that stuff, any of the events I do, I'm posting them on this link right here. It will always be there. Um, that's like the first thing I do before I even post things on Facebook. So if you are interested in any of that, please check out my link tree right there.
The rain barrel thing, more people ought to do that. The rainwater, especially for potted plants,
Mm-hmm.
is far superior to tap water. Nothing against you guys and your water system. You got a great water system, but the rainwater is a soft water, has a slightly acidic pH because of the
Mm-hmm.
dissolved carbon dioxide, and in house plants and potted plants, it reduces the salt buildup,
Mm-hmm.
which is much healthier for the potted plants long term. So, uh, if you can collect rainwater, if you only collect just a small amount, just enough to do your house plants, uh, it's really worthwhile. You know, the, if you have a lot of potted plants, you probably need to replace the soil every once in a while because of the salt buildup.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're using uh, rainwater, you can go twice as long, maybe 3 times as long between having to do any repotting. So it's better for the plants, and if you're like I am, you get a plant or two that been around long enough, and you start having some emotional attachment to the plant. So while you're talking to it, you can tell it how you're taking such better care by giving it a little rainwater. So
Yeah.
you know,
There's not a lot of plants that prefer a more alkaline pH. It's way more common for them to like a lower pH, more acidic pH. So it's it's really important to take that into consideration. And then even if you're just if you're supplementary watering things that are in the ground, it can even be super helpful. Not so much with the salt buildup. That's a little bit less of a problem in ground planted plants, but it will help them. Uh, it will help them with a little bit of the pH for the time that water's there. Um, Something I've been kind of focusing on lately is I'm looking out the window and I see the wet ground. I see our DRA out there full of water. If it rains, you most certainly can skip an irrigation day. I understand that you only have one day a week, but if for instance if your watering day it was Tuesday, I mean we definitely got a half inch of rain in the last little bit. So I'd say be wary of overwatering because we have standing water, we have soil that's inundated right now with water, so it might be beneficial to you because like you mentioned earlier, you don't want to overwater. They don't like being starved of oxygen for that gas exchange. So all the microbes, the beneficial microorganisms that are all on and in your root system, they need oxygen. So if you're flooding them out, keeping standing water there in you know soil that's full of water, adding more water is not really going to help. So kind of remember to consider the rain when you're using your irrigation system, and that goes to you're supposed to have a rain sensor. Um, they're not super expensive. They're not free. They tend to be 50 or $60, but you are supposed to have one, and they are really helpful in keeping your water bill down, especially during the rainy season in Florida when it rains so much that you almost shouldn't be using your irrigation system in that time. So it's just something to remember.
One of the things about lawn that you can kind of think about how it tells you what its condition is as far as water.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of a leaf like a book, if you open the book and it's laying flat on the table, uh, the rib right down the middle is like the rib in the middle of the grass leaf. And when the grass has plenty of water, it's just like the book. It's flat all the way across. And as it gets less and less water, it's like starting to close the book. And when
Mm-hmm.
it gets to the point where the angle between the pages is about 90 degrees, that's the point where the lawn needs to be watered again. So,
Yeah.
you know, if,
Another way,
if the if the leaves are open on the lawn, the lawn's got plenty of water. You don't have to worry
mhm.
about it.
Yeah, if you're in, if you have something, with St. Augustine, if it needs water, you'll know if you walk across it, you'll be able to see your footsteps. The water content of those leaves are a huge reason why they're so elastic and they can bounce back and not show. But when they need water and you walk across it, you'll see that you can see where you walk. The footsteps are not bouncing back the same way um, that they typically would be. We do have a question here from Anne. With all this rain, I have horrible weeds growing in between my bushes that go along the front of my house, grass and some other weeds. What do you suggest? I have used glyphosate. That doesn't seem to be working. Thinking of pulling them all out. Not sure what else to do. They're at least 5 feet, so weeding would be a huge job and often. Maybe time to let go. What are your thoughts?
Well, one of the problems with glyphosate is that it's not an immediate killer. So if you spray glyphosate, um, expect normally around 2 weeks before everything starts really dying.
Mm-hmm.
If you raise the concentration, you can kill things quicker. But the problem is, what you want to have happen is for the glyphosate to be translocated from the leaf down into the root structure and then have it destroy the root structure.
Mm-hmm.
If you spray it at a really high rate, you can destroy the leaf structure, make the plant fall over, but the root is still sitting there
Mm-hmm.
ready to go. So uh,
This is kind of going back to that. The label is the law. You want to use these things as described because sure you can burn up a plant real quick if you're spraying really hot glyphosate, but you're also killing the all of the water transport systems in that plant that allow
there,
glyphosate to work on the roots. So
there are some plants that are immune to glyphosate, but there aren't very many. So if you have a general run of weeds, you've got uh, 20 or 30 different kinds of weeds, which is probably normal if you haven't been doing weed control. Uh, there might be one or two that are resistant, but that would be all. You would not see uh, 5 or 6 or 7 different weeds that don't respond. So
And if you're planning on using something other than glyphosate, you just want to be really careful. If you're spraying it around, if you're spraying a different something that might be soil active, that has some long half life that's not going to go away when you put it in the soil, which tend to be effective herbicides that tend to kill stuff. But that's the thing is they kill stuff. So you have these. If you don't want to spray something like that in a flower bed or around your bushes because it's also going to have a uh, bad effect on your
the
plants you
advantage
want there.
the advantage with glyphosate is that it only translocates when it's sprayed on green things. So if it's sprayed on stems or trunks or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, if it isn't green, it's not going to be absorbed. So you can use it around trees, and instead of a string trimmer, you can clear a path around a tree, and it won't hurt the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the disadvantage is if you get it on anything that's green, you've got some shrubbery, and it gets on the shrubbery,
Mm-hmm.
it gets translocated into the shrubs just like everything else. So uh,
Yeah.
Roundup is a very good product, but it is a very damaging thing to plants. And uh, if you don't understand it and don't follow the rules, it can be disastrous. There are some other weed control things, and there's some plants that don't respond well to Roundup. Not dicam, dichondra. What? Uh, there's just a family of weeds that have a very waxy coating, and the Roundup doesn't make it through the waxy coating. So uh, if you're a farmer, you're aware of the fact that you use a product that helps the Roundup stick to the leaves and doesn't run off of the waxy coated leaves. And we have some plants that, by their nature, are just really tough to get rid of. Um, um, the image for sedges is a good product for sedges, but image used to be one of those things where uh, the only product they had was uh, for sedges. Now image has got a whole family of products, and you have to pick the right one. So if you have a sedge problem, sedges look like grasses, but a lot of them have this little thing on top that looks like it might be sharp and poke you, and you squeeze one of them, and they're soft and don't hurt at all. So uh, if you see things like that, Roundup doesn't do the greatest job on those. That's something where uh, Image for sedges works very well. Sedge Hammer is another product that works pretty well. So you know, weeds right now are going to grow like crazy. So the only advantage is that the lawn is also going to be growing like crazy. So if you keep it mowed, uh, it'll reduce the weeds because the weeds won't be able to produce seed and won't grow up and get. To, and next year you'll have fewer weeds, uh, and the lawn will do pretty well. Now, if you have a hay lawn and you keep cutting back all the seed heads, you're going to eventually have your lawn fade away, and the weeds will be all that's left to take over. So, uh, if you're keeping a Bahia lawn cut, you might want to overseed occasionally to keep the number of Bahia stems up. So, it's something to think about.
Another, I know some people, if they're having trouble with glyphosate, will use 2,4-D. Um, but once again, you gotta be careful. You really have to get the ratio right because if you a hot 2,4-D will kill, uh, it'll kill what you spray it on and everything around it. So just just an option you might want to look into and make sure. I know that IFAS has some really good articles on 2,4-D specifically. I wouldn't recommend if you have anything in your grass, I wouldn't recommend using any 2,4-D there, but some stuff that's kind of by itself with you know not in your actual lawn might be a good idea.
2,4-D tends to translocate. It
Hmm.
uh, has a drift problem. So if you spray it close to your shrubbery, you can end up really
Hmm.
damaging the shrubbery. So
You you got to use a surfactant. That's a big one. Don't use any wide range sprayer. Make sure you have a surfactant if you're the formula you're using may not include one. You might want to add one. Just kind of it is really important because the drift problem is the big issue with 2,4-D. But I know that especially a lot of commercial farmers will use 2,4-D instead of glyphosate because the weeds they've been using glyphosate so long that the weeds have become resistant to it.
well, a lot of the crops now are available
Hmm.
resistant to glyphosate. So you can go in, plant soybeans, and go in and spray Roundup right on top of the soybeans. Don't hurt the soybeans, but you take out the weeds. So uh, the farmers, uh, for the most part, are buying products that are not available to the homeowner. So
Hmm.
very
Yeah,
few of the things that farmers use are actually available for a homeowner.
yeah.
So
That was one thing I had to when I got this job. I had to learn real quick what herbicide because at Swiftland, man, I was using all kinds of stuff, and it's like, hey, most of this you cannot buy. You cannot buy, so you either have to find the equivalent. There's like you can't just buy Roundup Roundup custom the custom mix you would buy this other Pro Max or whatever the other mix would be. So like learning that stuff, learning what you can actually buy as a civilian, it's super important. You can't really go based off of uh, what the commercial people are doing.
on more of a horticultural type note, you may be seeing some uh, pine tree damage that you haven't seen uh, in the past couple of years. The drought stressed a lot of the pine trees, and of course, pine bark beetles and things. When the pines are stressed, come in and that's nature's way of keeping things thinned out. So uh, you may see a few of the pine trees get zapped, and that's nothing to worry about. It is a routine thing that happens. Um, the palm tree disease is a problem, and a lot of the sable palms, the cabbage palms, are really getting beat up by the used to be called Texas Phoenix palm decline. I like that, but Texas
Sounds
didn't
pretty
like
cool.
that, so we changed the name to lethal bronzing. But TTPD was a lot neater, except if you're from Texas, I guess. So
I think you might want to avoid giving the diseases really cool names. You probably have to give them kind of lame names so people aren't enticed to get
yeah,
them.
you know
I
the
noticed
okay. Go ahead.
I noticed. So I live smack dab in the middle of Spring Hill, and there's not where I'm at. It's not there's not too many pine trees, but my neighbors have a couple pine trees, and I was looking. They have one really tall longleaf pine that looks the same as it has since I moved in there. But then they have a little sand pine that's looking a little rough. I was like, ooh. I went out in the backyard a couple days ago, and it looked like I was like, man, that thing's not looking too healthy. And I didn't want to walk in their yard and look at their tree, but I was wondering what that could be. But that's a good point you made about the drought and the other things that can happen because a plant is stressed out with drought.
Yeah, uh, a lot of people have done hurricane cut on palm trees, and hurricane cut is one of those things that really shouldn't be done. I have have a neighbor that doesn't, and I can't convince her that you shouldn't be doing that. So uh, every every year in June they come in and they take. She's got like 10 queen palms, nice big queen palms, and they take everything down to leave about 5 fronds on the tree. Well, the thing that happens is when you start cutting that many fronds off of the tree starts sending out hormones or something bad going on, and it's warning the other trees. But when it does that, it also calls the beetles. The uh, I can't think of the name of these little beetles. But anyway, they come running in and they start eating on your tree. And once you get them, the palm weevils, you can't do anything about it. It's a end of the palm tree. So, uh, you know, do
Those
not
little
hurricane cut your palms. The palms are really strange in that they take all the nutrients out of the bottom fronds and put it into the new growth. That's why it turns brown at the bottom and it just goes in
mhm.
order right up. If you start looking at the leaves, they're kind of a circular thing all the way around the trunk going up, and it just follows a little pattern. It uh, produces new growth at the top, and it feeds the new growth with the nutrients that are in the bottom leaf. And when that one's done, it turns brown, completely brown, and the next one starts turning brown. And
You talking about
so,
the little black the what a palmetto weevil maybe?
yeah,
Hmm.
unfortunately, there's
You know,
nothing you can
if you
do
try
once
to
you get the weevil. It's over. Palm trees
yeah.
only grow from the very top. The heart of the palm is the heart of the palm. So that
Hmm.
top foot is where it's all happening. And once you lose the ability to form a spear leaf, then the palm, even though it's green and beautiful and pretty and looks happy, it's dead.
Hmm.
It's all over because it can't continue on, and they're only alive as long as they're continuously growing. So as soon as you stop the ability to grow, you put an end to the life of the palm.
Yeah, you got to remember, palms are they're not trees. They're monocots. They're a lot different. They have a lot of different growth habits, a lot of different maintenance habits. Like they're a completely different class of plant than something like an oak tree. So it's important to recognize those differences and kind of this all goes back to just knowing what you're planting, knowing what plants you have, knowing how to take care of them. If you try to tell somebody how they should cut their palm, they get really upset with you. I've been doing it like this for years, and it's fine. Okay.
Same way with crepe myrtle.
Oh
Don't
yeah. Oh yeah.
don't tell, but don't even bother to tell anybody what to do with their crepe myrtle. They really know it. It's been done this way for 100 years, and we're going to do it that way for 100 years. And we don't have any reason to do it that way, but our minds made up. Don't confuse us with facts. I love it.
There's a guy on the corner of my street. I was coming home from work and I turned down and he's got a corner lot. So I'm going down, about to turn onto my road and I see and he has just mangled these crepe myrtles and I was this close and I was like, I want to just go home. I don't need this today. And I just went to the house. I'm not I'm not in the it wasn't going to be worth it. I don't think I was going to convince him. He looked pretty determined.
Were we getting any questions, Colby? I'm
I've been
sitting here. I
looking.
can't see anything that happens. I'm just like the people at home. I'm on the screen and that's it.
Yeah.
Colby gets to see
No.
all the good stuff. So
No, we haven't gotten any questions. We got people watching. So if you have any questions, if anything you're even curious about, if we've sparked any sort of curiosity with our, sidetracks here, just uh just let us know.
I'm a bromeliad fan. I really like them, even if they do have mosquitoes. So although I guess I'm not supposed to promote them because the mosquito people don't like them. I do. And went over to the uh, botanical gardens. Hernando County has a botanical gardens that has really gotten to be a wonderful place. So if you like plants and you want to go see some nice plants, and the price is super right, it's free. Go to the Hernando County Botanical Gardens. So
It's over there. It's over there right off of Spring Hill Drive near 19.
right, a couple blocks north of Spring Hill Drive, not very far from Highway 19, and the bromeliads, several of them were in bloom, and I think that that's probably the most interesting family of plants when they bloom because they produce some of the strangest looking blooms, and you may only see them for 2 or 3 days or a couple of weeks, but while they're there, they are the most gorgeous thing, and the variety and the growing conditions. There are very few bromeliads that really like full sun, but there are a couple that, and they tend to be a yellowish color, and then the ones that are dark green tend to be nice and shady plants. If you got an oak tree someplace, it's something that you can plant under an oak tree. Where grass doesn't want to grow, you can put in a little bromeliad bed. Have some very, very pretty plants. Uh, I like them. So uh, something to
I
think
think
about. It you get a day where you got a couple of hours that you don't have anything going. You want to go someplace and do something, but you don't want to spend any money. The botanical gardens is really a nice place to go. They do sell plants and they compete with our nursery. And I'm not telling you to buy plants from them. Buy plants from our nursery, but uh, go out and look at the free garden. It's a very nice place.
I'm a big fan of cycads. I like sago palms and kuntis especially. That's my favorite native plant. I think. I just think they look natural, and I think it's super cool how old they are, and how the kunti is the only cycad we have that's native to Florida. I think is pretty cool, and they'll just grow anywhere. Just so low maintenance. Don't need anything. Will grow in the most terrible, awful soil. Just happy. I see a
They're
lot of
slow
them around here.
growing. So,
Yeah, they
but
do grow
boy,
pretty slow.
when they get big, they're bush like. They're
Hmm.
3 foot tall, nice and dense. And you're right, it's a beautiful plant.
Hell, I
Uh,
mean, we have a real big one right out. The next time you're over at the office, you'll have to look at it. It's right out in front of the front door. It's probably chest high, brightly
oh,
colored. I quite enjoy it. They planted some in front of the Huey Magoo's over on off of Cortez. They have them right, or maybe the Tijuana Flats, one or the other. They have some in
hmm.
front of. I think it's the Tijuana Flats. They have some recently planted ones. They're not very big, like you said, slow growing, but when they do get mature, they're really nice.
I loved it when sagos were really popular. I thought they were a beautiful plant. And then we had the little bugs show up,
Hmm.
all the sagos turned white, and there wasn't an immediate cure. And it pretty well put an end to the sagos being used as landscaping plants here. It's now controllable, but nobody uses the plant any longer. But I we have a 4-H group here doing uh, a little cooking, and they just brought me a sample, and it's delicious. And if you guys were here, you would, I'm sure everybody would enjoy it. But in the meantime, I'm going to have another bite. So
For sort of just riffing on plants you like. Another cycad. I like the cardboard plant. I think it looks pretty neat. It's like a kunti with big leaves. Um, so interesting. I like the species, plants and animals that are just old. They just haven't changed in so long. Been around forever and ever and ever. Uh, Things like alligators, they're like that. They haven't really changed in a really, really long time. They're dinosaurs, basically, that are walking around. Um, Super, super interesting. It's like a snapshot into the distant past.
What's really nice is that if you like that tropical look, you can get it with those are native
Mm-hmm.
plants that have that tropical look, and yet they do very well here. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we are definitely not tropical. You get one of our winters, and you get a shot down to 18 degrees, and it's really sad because you lose all the true tropicals. But
Mm-hmm.
the cycads tend to hang around. That's we're just right on the border. Uh, they aren't going to go much lower, but they do seem to survive what we get here. So
Mm-hmm. I like to recommend those cycads to, you know, folks that move down from way up north and they're, expecting to live in their tropical oasis here. And it's like, oh, well, be careful. Yeah, not too tropical now. Cycad's about as tropical as it gets, I think.
yeah, I'd like to see more people do the king sagos or something like that again. That uh, you can use um, drench with the neonics, and the plants uh, become resistant to the cycad scale,
Mm-hmm.
and they are not a flowering plant, so they're not really a hazard to the bees like a lot of plants would be if you're using the neonics. You have to really be careful. The imidacloprid, I don't know how in the world California uses imidacloprid on everything, and they depend on the bees for everything. So they have got to be using that at very, very strictly controlled times so that when the bees are there for their crop, they're not killing all the bees. So
Mm-hmm.
what's
I don't know
that?
what that was. Uh,
You got conversation in the background, huh?
oh yeah, I've been well the last little bit. I've been having to do more things at my more little meetings and stuff, kind of impromptu. So I haven't been. I used to pack up my whole computer setup and move it into another room, and now I've been doing it out here. So get a little bit more.
Just
When Bill's here and I'm not talking, I tend to turn my microphone off so it doesn't annoy anybody. But when it's just you and me, I gotta be able to talk.
yeah, get a closet someplace and set up your little office in the closet, so
Well,
they
I
wouldn't
got I
even
got
know if
good
you were there or not.
I got good real estate here, and I don't want to give it up. So once again, I'll remind everybody if you have any questions, please just go ahead and put them in the comments. We'll do our best, or any just topics that you want to mention. Um, we'd love to have a little direction.
Well, that's about enough quietness. We need to mention, you know, um, I was going through and I planted some trees that uh, I lost track of what they were, and I was so excited. One of them that has been there for 6 years, and I haven't been able to identify it. Turns out it's a persimmon. So, you know, uh, it, putting tags out, or at least keeping a little drawing of what you've got planted in various places probably makes a lot of sense. Used to do that. I had a really nice drawing of uh, every one of the trees I had planted, and what it was, and if it was citrus, the variety, and all that. And when it got to the point where I couldn't get back up after I got down to dig the hole, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of stopped doing all that. But it's just amazing. Is it, the things that I could grow 25 years ago, so many of them I can't grow any longer.
Hmm.
Uh, and I didn't expect that to happen. I bought an old orange grove, and at one time I had 140 citrus trees, and over the years, 140 citrus trees have all succumbed to HLB. So citrus greening is there, and uh, it's really been rough. So
Yeah, it's kind of it is pretty disappointing when um, that development of disease and it getting stronger and all is outpacing the development of new varieties and treatments and stuff. And some things are just diseases are arranged in a way that they just cannot be treated. That there's nothing you can do. So that it all goes back to prevention. So you have to find a way to prevent it from even occurring, from even getting to a point. And I think that's the goal of a lot of those things that, for instance, UF's doing, trying to develop those varieties that just cannot be affected by it.
yeah, university apparently has uh, quite a few varieties that are in trial right now. It should be introduced pretty quick that are showing great resistance to HLB. They don't show immunity, but
Mm-hmm.
apparently the plants grow, produce fruit. The fruit's fine. Uh, they have some evidence of having the disease, but they work around it, and that's acceptable. But they need to do something. One of the biggest industries that we had is pretty much decimated at this
Mm-hmm.
point.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, even in my lifetime, I've seen them get smaller and smaller and smaller. There used to be I had a doctor that was in Tavares, and I'd drive from Webster to Tavares, and there was a little orange grove right there by whatever golf course that is. I can't remember, but that just over the course of years has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, and now it's they've uh, given up on the grove. It seems the last time I was there, which has been probably a couple years ago, it was just the remnants of it.
Yeah, there's one orange grove on Florida 19 that on along that route that they just replanted, and it looks like it's doing okay. I don't know what variety it is, but um, it's not a for sale nursery because the for sale plants have to be grown under cover. So
Mm.
it's a legitimate nursery, and apparently it might be honeybells or something that, or it might be some of these new plants that are experimental. Uh,
It's funny you mentioned that, and suggest growing the satsuma and honeybells. I don't know a whole lot about citrus varieties. That's not something that I've ever had too much experience with.
the thing about citrus in Florida is that uh, it's primarily juice related. The thing about it is we have a lot of diseases, a lot of problems that don't affect the quality of the juice that affect the way the plants look.
Hmm.
So if you want pretty fruit, that Florida, oh, she's right, they are delicious.
Hmm.
Our juice plants, our juice citrus, is absolutely the finest juice that you can get. If you want a pretty, beautiful, big orange that you can eat, that's one thing. You buy a California Navel or whatever. But if you want something to produce some really good juice, uh, get half a dozen of the Florida varieties, the
Hmm.
Parson Brown, the Valencias, those kind of things, and we do great, but they're not pretty. They've
What's
had
on the inside that counts. Yeah.
little, yeah, some little bronzing on the skin, little things, all kinds of little things that affect the way they look. Doesn't affect the fruit at all. So
Hmm. I mean, that's a lot of it though. Is when you're talking about the viability of an industry, especially it's like, well, how many people are buying it, and if you have, I know that if I was going to the store to buy an orange, I would not buy an ugly orange. I am not gonna peel this orange and check it while I'm there, but especially if I don't know anything about it, I'm gonna buy a pretty looking orange, which certainly isn't from certainly probably isn't from here, but that's part of it. So when you're talking about industry viability, you have to remember that it is a little bit important, at least how they look, if you're talking about oranges for sale.
Yeah, but it's like coconuts. If coconuts were all different colors on the outside and had funny spots and everything, nobody would ever buy a coconut.
Mm.
But once you peel them back, they're pretty much all the same inside, unless they're really old and then they're dried up and not good. But uh, that's a thing that like so many things does not grow well in Florida. What we can do here, we do very well. What we can't do here, uh, for the most part, they don't attempt. But because we can do things out of season with the rest of the world, uh, farming in Florida is a very unique situation. Uh, if there's a 2 month period that I don't know, like blackberries. If you can have blackberries at a time where nobody else in the world is producing blackberries,
Mm-hmm.
you can get more for that than anybody else normally gets, and that's what we do. We produce tomatoes when the rest of the world doesn't produce tomatoes. We don't make ketchup out of our tomatoes because they're lousy for ketchup, but they don't do too bad on a hamburger, and especially when uh, we have the only tomatoes in the country when we have tomatoes,
Better be happy. Beggars can't be choosers. Then it seems.
and we have strawberries when nobody else has strawberries. So um,
We did get a question here from Cindy. She asked, "There used to be a man who was very knowledgeable about orchids. Was that through your extension? He may have passed away or retired. Are you familiar with who I'm referring to?"
yes, and
I'm
he
certainly
passed
not.
away.
Yeah, okay.
Uh, that was really sad. That man would show up at one of our events, and he had a big trailer like you would haul a car, one where the tailgate would drop down and you could roll something in, that kind of a trailer, and he would have it full of orchids, and he'd show up for some little event, and he'd have 100 varieties of orchids, and he knew everything. He was a genuine uh, whiz, just a true guru of orchids, and we've had some of those kind of people. Unfortunately, the problem you run into is that when you have a lifetime of knowledge about something, you've also lived a lifetime, and it makes these people only with us for a short period of time. But it's been wonderful while they were with us. We have a fellow that has some health problems now that uh, had been a gardener in Key West, a professional gardener, and he could just look at a tropical and tell you everything there was to know about it.
Hmm.
Still can. I mean, he's one of those guys that if it flowers, he knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was active, it was wonderful. If he was here, you felt like King Kong because you knew if anybody came in and had a flower question, he
Mm-hmm.
was going to be able to answer it. And identification, he could identify all these things that uh, I'm. When it comes to flower identification, I don't know pansies from posies. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
just, I'm really bad at it. I'm the technical guy. You want to know about soil samples, or you
Mm-hmm.
want to know about bugs in your lawn, those kind of things. That I know. But when it comes to plant identification,
Mm-hmm.
we've had people that were super, and
Some of my plant identification is really good, and some of it's really bad. The horticulture plant, like horticultural plants, oof, I'm having to go to a key, and I'm having to go through the whole thing, and uh, you, I know my problem invasives. I know those really well, but that's just because that's where my experience is. But I think it's really important when you have somebody like that, or someone has a whole lot of knowledge. It's, man, get that stuff down on paper. Um, my grandpa was a painter, and it was really nice. I can look at that, look at it. I have several of his paintings, and it's really nice to be able to look at that. And I think that if you have a different type of knowledge base, a different type of skill, it's really important, man. If something you're good at, put it down on paper.
Yeah, and it would be nice to be able to go in and clone their mind. If you could just
Mm-hmm.
plug in someplace in the back of their head and download all that information, because it took years to acquire it,
Mm-hmm.
and so much of it is not readily available. It may be written down someplace, but so much of it isn't.
There's also, you have to know where to start. You have to know what to look for. That you may not even, the answer may be pretty easy to find, but that's only if you know what to look for. This problem may go several layers deep. Um, and I would say if you're someone with only not a very deep knowledge of something, that may be a little bit hard to find those answers. But the good thing is that if as a layperson, as someone who's not doesn't do this for a job, it may be you have the extension as a resource, and the extension has the university as a resource to find out the answers to any of those really really hard questions. It's kind of a really great segue into kind of plugging everything. So if you have any super hard plant questions, bug questions, just go ahead and email them right there to Dr. Lester. He says don't call him, email him. He's hard to get. So send him an email and he'll get back to you. If you do have any questions where you do want to call, if you want to talk to Bernie on Thursdays, um, that's going to be the number. So give them a call if you have any questions. Or let's see what else we have here. Visit the Master Gardener Nursery. They have all kinds of great Florida friendly plants available. I get a lot of people asking me where to find perennial peanut, especially. That's one that I get a lot, is perennial peanut. And every time I've been there, they've had perennial peanut. So, like I said, if you're interested in some Florida friendly plants, please check it out. If you have any utility questions, watering questions, Florida friendly landscaping questions, you can send me an email right there. I'm pretty responsive. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you're curious about anything FFL that's happening in Hernando County, you're going to want to visit this link right here. This is going to give you rain barrel workshops. There's a quick link to the plant guide right there. All the Hernando County utilities rebates here, all kinds of stuff. Anything that I could answer your question, calling me, you can find it right there. So if you're, off hours, if I'm not at work, that's a great place to find all that information.
One thing I'd like to request is that if you send an email, put a phone number in the email. So, there are a lot of times when something can be resolved with a email that's got a picture and a phone call. Man, it's all real done simple, nothing to it. However, we end up with this thing where you email, I email, you email, I email. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
here for till next
Yeah.
week. Somebody else comes along, gets involved in the middle of it, and it just doesn't come to a satisfactory conclusion.
And the back and forth on the phone within
Yeah,
15 seconds. Oh, yeah. I have plenty of that here. But, and part of that's my fault. During the plant clinic, I've gotten 4 phone calls. So I'll have to get back to those people. But, it is, sometimes it's not just that simple. We need to know more information. And when you're sending in any of those types of questions, you want to include absolutely as much information as possible. All the information you have. Pictures are great, especially when you're talking plant ID and stuff. And if we can't get from there, you can even bring in a sample. I know that when Bill and I go to Timber Pines, people bring in, just about every time they bring in something in a Ziploc bag that they dug up out of their yard, and uh, we'll look at it. I actually keep all the plant samples the plant ID samples I get. I have them flattened in a book in my closet. But you know, really, it's really hard to answer some of those questions without all the information, and it's hard to give you an accurate answer.
Yeah, we're really lucky in that we have really good support staff.
Oh yeah,
So, when you call, you talk to an office gal. Well, in so many businesses, the office gal's an office gal. Actually, here, Teresa's actually a master gardener. She's Because of her position, she's not really supposed to uh, take care of information, but she knows the information. And a lot of times, uh, people will call in and they'll say they have a particular problem. She'll have the whole thing researched. I come in, I can call the people, and here's the whole package ready to go. Uh, Makes it so simple. So uh, we've just got some really great people here. We've got two doctors on the staff and a third one coming up. So, we've got high level people, and we've got the backing of even higher level people. So, from my standpoint, it's hard to imagine a situation that we don't have access to an answer. Um, may not be the answer you want to hear, but at least we can get you some real information, and it's a very enjoyable position for me to be in. I really have loved this. I've done it 20 years now, and it's been not only an education for me, but it's been an enjoyable opportunity. So uh, don't mind at all. If you have a question, just don't hesitate. And
it's our job.
Colby's got the same kind of background. I mean, he's got the ability to go back in through the university for anything he needs. So it's amazing what's available. And the interesting thing is, you've already paid for it. So if you don't use it, it's not our fault. You spent the money; it's there. So
We do have a question here. This one, actually, a question for me. I think. How far away do palm trees have to be from our septic and leach field? So with any trees that you're planting around a drain field or any of that, you want to make sure that their roots are not going to get into the drain field. So that's very dependent on the type of species. And Bernie might be able to add about how far those roots are going to grow out. I'm not aware of that information right off the top of my head, but I do know that you want them to be far enough away that none of the roots are going to get over top of the drain field, into the drain field, down into your septic tank. You want to keep
palm trees can go as much as 3 times the drip line. So if the drip line's 10 feet, the roots can be 30 feet long.
So there you go. There's your answer. Yeah, I do know that there's a lot of good septic information with the health department, I want to say. Hernando County Health Department. I think they have like a septic FAQ somewhere, but I know that that's what they want, is that you don't want your roots growing, because like the roots can grow down into that drain field and clog it, and then obviously any sort of roots could possibly damage the septic tank. So there you go. 3 times the drip line. That'll get you far enough away from it. But I do believe it is about time that we wrap up. So I want to thank everybody for listening to us today, for all your questions. Bernie, I want to thank you for being here and some good conversations. So, alrighty. We will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bill should be back next week, so.
Great.